Magnetic strand. Wonderful.
Everything all right? Yeah. There's just so much. A letter. Encoded like the others. Can't wait to work it out. So, the letter. I'm prepared for bad news.
How did you know?
They were collecting supplies for other survivors. We know someone is out there. The supplies never made it to them. That, and the tear stains.
Is that what that was? Yes, well, there's a lot to cover. We have the cache itself and our scrounging siblings. We should at least give you the high-level details on both. Where do you want to start?
Talk to me about the supplies.
They did astonishing work. If I weren't sure they're both gone, I'd hire them.
Indeed, a robust collection, including several enchanted objects we barely recognize.
They had a keen eye for things that could decay and took care to preserve them.
You two sound giddy.
If there's one thing Lane and I are passionate about, it's preservation of rare objects.
Were there any hints of more of these?
As far as we can tell, this was it. Their motherlode.
It's impressive one runner could gather this much, frankly.
Have you been working your magic, Casmin?
Obviously. Thank you for bringing everything back so carefully.
Anything of note?
Yes, but let's save that until we've done the other questions.
Mysterious. That's enough about the cache.
Sure.
What did the final note say?
Yes, right. It was a farewell. One sibling disappeared. The runner.
I thought the runner of the pair was the one we found.
So did we. But this last message was a farewell to his sister. Apparently the Grumpole...
Really?
I know. But apparently their boss had been ordered to stop wasting resources on the search.
And so our hauler left this farewell, hoping his sister might find it, on the off chance she was alive.
He was going to remove all their other messages so their plan wouldn't be found out.
We postulate he was on his way to do that,
When the flood caught him.
These people, however many are left, they've really been through it.
They might really need our help.
They're still organized and have a command structure, but it sounds dysfunctional.
Is there anything we could do, do you think?
Sadly, no. But their story will live on in our chronicle.
Did we confirm they weren't actually stealing from the Enclave?
The letter seems genuine. I think their plan was to bring in a big haul.
It says a lot about the Hearthsiders that our siblings thought this would clear any suspicion.
How so?
The cloud of suspicion tells us they were in dire times, tightening the screws on their own people.
But bring in a big load and we trust you. Doesn't that sound a little like a bribe?
So you think our runners were dirty?
No. I think the system's dirty, and they're just stuck working through it.
I'm not going to say the name, but do we have any sense of who was giving their orders?
The Enclave's leader was called the Eye, a first of firsts, after a fashion. Elected from the masters of each craft, the High Smith, High Enchanter, and so on. Unfortunately, we don't have any details about their direct superior. I will spare you the name.
Let's move on to something else.
Of course.
So, where do we go from here?
Good news. We compared notes with Dom. We found parts that will let us complete Lucia's thimble, from those schematics you decoded.
It has been a busy time. Solar will handle the assembly, of course.
I suppose the only other thing to say is... good job, Bryn.
Indeed. We have made progress in unraveling the shape of what the post-Surge society looks like in the Enclave. Further, these documents are invaluable to the historical record.
And maybe you put a couple souls to rest. Not to be sentimental.
All right. Let's go over everything we know so far.
We know that, for a time after the Surge, civilians continued to live in Tenebron until they were forced to evacuate the city. We're still not sure the cause.
Wherever the Hearthsiders went, they're still actively sending scouting groups to scavenge for supplies. From the uniform, the Creeper who was watching Bryn sleep belongs to one of these groups.
We also know that a defensive procedure codenamed Asylum sealed access to the Enclave underground. This was done using a barrier almost exactly like the Veil.
Lucia, an ex-High Enchantress, opposed Asylum and began working on ways to sabotage it.
Her research forecasted that the barrier would cause the Enclave to flood with miasma. The very same flood that seems to have killed Lucia before she was able to finish her thimble.
But we have her design. It could disrupt Asylum's barrier.
So Lucia's thimble is the key to our survival.
It's less a key and more like a magical battering ram.
Whatever works.
What is it, Lane?
It's just, I've pored over all the documents we've compiled, and a concrete link between the evacuation plan and the underground is nowhere to be found. I can't shake the feeling we're missing something.
Lane, if it turns out the underground is filled with 5-headed lizards spitting poison instead of hearthsiders, I'll be fine. Skies. That might even be more fun.
We have different definitions of fun.
Being a weaver isn't about being certain all the time. It's about taking calculated risks to carve a path forward. And regardless of the Hearthsider's location, disrupting the barrier is the only option to stop the flood.
You're right. I just hope that if we did miss something, it doesn't come back to bite us.
Even if it does, we will handle it.
That settles it. Bryn, it's time to use the thimble.
Sola, Lane.
Don't forget to block.
Thank you for your help with that, Bryn. You've a deft hand for flame magic. You can wear Sev's apprentice hat for one day. Also, Lucia knew what she was doing. This thimble was clearly designed to pair seamlessly with Enclave constructions.
Must be her experience as a High Enchantress at work.
Based on Lucia's notes and what we discovered at the Bastion, this was custom designed to disrupt Asylum's barrier.
If it can stop the flood, we need to use it soon.
Agreed. We don't know how much time we have left. Always refreshing to work with carved materials. Not too heavy, not too light. You know, there's one silver lining to the sad tale of our deceased runners.
What's that?
We know the Hearthsiders still have some advanced production capabilities. The materials they were gathering don't have much use for basic survival. Therefore, weapons, armor, and enchantments.
Any concerns about us claiming them?
None. They've been there long enough. Scavenger etiquette applies. These kinds of materials are too rare to let go to waste. You know there's a trick to picking your armor when dealing with temperature.
Do tell.
If you're going to be up against extreme cold or heat, lighter armors can be the better choice. They can't provide raw protection like steel, but metals also move temperature very quickly. Lighter armors layer cloth and leathers, much better for insulation, especially if you pick the right ones.
I'll keep that in mind. This place pulls no punches.
Half-siders are scavenging their own city. Things must be dire.
I'm worried about them after that particular discovery.
You've a kind heart, Bryn. Though I'll stick to worrying about us, if you don't mind. I keep thinking about how angry those notes were.
Lucia's?
Yes. The tone was acidic, and she clearly felt she'd been betrayed. Not in the general sense. It was personal. I just wish she'd been more clear about by whom.
You know, a quality you share with Aurea is your ability to keep a steady eye on the horizon.
Any comparison to Aurea is flattering. But how do you mean exactly?
The rest of us couldn't help but feel, thrown, to say the least, upon hearing about this flood that might kill us all. But you cut through the fear immediately, and recognized that, flood or no flood, our goal stays the same.
I am a little afraid. But I don't see how worrying accomplishes anything.
Exactly. You stay focused on the bigger picture, and you don't let the details throw you off course, however catastrophic they might be.
We will find the Hearthsiders in time.
I know. I have faith. The Iron Walk. Hilda told me all these amazing stories, but seeing it in person... wow.
Sorry, who?
Oh, my mentor. She visited the Enclave regularly before the Surge. I apprenticed under her for a few years.
What did she tell you?
The noise from the forges made sure you'd only have the smiths and their clients around. But on an average day, some serious coin would trade hands. The Enclave's smithing culture was such a draw, it started to cause tensions with the other nations. It didn't help that the Enclave would actively poach the best and brightest. They had deep purses.
I've heard stories of that. Some of the Carnhaven masters had moved and never returned after the veil went up.
The Surge was horrible for everyone, of course, but I reckon a few smithing guilds were happy to not have the competition anymore.
Making the best of it, I suppose?
And make the best of it they did.
Harvesting. Such an intriguing term for so critical a task.
Why do we call it that, anyway?
My favorite explanation is that it implies a thoughtfulness. When we harvest a creature, we pull something out of its essence. It is, fundamentally, a violent act. But we harvest predators, ones that pose a threat to us. There are peaceful or merely territorial creatures that use magic, but Weaver custom is to never harvest them.
That makes sense. I like that we're selective about it.
Further, Weavers do not seek to eradicate these creatures, merely keep them in check. Slaughter them all, and we not only lose access to more strands, but also risk disrupting the ecosystem. You've heard of Rehnland's famed attempt to cull their Akala population, and the mass loss of crops due to too many deer, yes? Same thing. Even something as wild as an Ash Peak drake plays a role in the world. A shame to lose such prodigious runners. They were really very good.
The Hearthsiders have had it harder than any of us expected.
Indeed. We shan't let their efforts go to waste. Lucia's thimble is within our reach thanks to them. You know, I'm a little surprised to see a Hallowpire temple take such pride of place in Denevron.
What do you mean?
I'd always envisioned the Enclave to be a little more progressive. At least compared to Rehnland, where I'm from. The Church of the Hallowed Pyre has a tight grip on the populace there, to say the least. Not that there's anything inherently wrong with religion, of course. I'm not going to proclaim myself an authority. It's simply that my personal experiences with that religion were quite negative. As was their view on magic in general. I am going to be poring through Lucia's notes for years.
Fascinating stuff.
Perhaps not to everyone, but she was a brilliant enchanter. It's not often I read a marginal comment accompanied with a lewd doodle and go, "Flames, that's brilliant." Oh, it's very exciting to see one of the Enclave's enchanted weapon designs firsthand. I'm sure Sola will have a field day with it.
I don't need any particularly magical materials for it, I notice.
No, that's where I come in. I preserve numerous byproducts alongside each resonance as part of the weaving process. I have got, in the literal and figurative sense, your back.
That console that looks like our scry should be the controls for the barrier. The thimble was built to interface with it.
Time to disrupt Asylum. Great timing. I owe you one.
You need to come with me. All of you.
We mustn't cause a panic.
Sure. It's not like we had a dire supplies shortage on our hands before this happened.
What do I tell the High Enchanter? The Guild will want...
Enough. We won't discuss this further. Not in front of our guests. Identify yourselves.
Aurea Harpenay, or Silverbeak, as I'm known among Weaver circles. This is my band, and beside me is our acting point.
Bryn. And you are?
Khan Stunild, Eye of the Enclave. My colleagues are the Spindle and the Axle, representatives of the Enchanting and Crafting Guilds. Who sent you?
Sent us?
Taza? Rehnland? Udea? The Enclave is the envy of the Maida for its magical prowess. Clearly one of those nations has finally grown a spine and decided to take it for themselves in our moment of weakness.
Moment?
No one sent us. We came here by accident.
What kind of fool do you take me for? You expect me to believe that you bypassed our veil, infiltrated our loom gates, and breached Asylum without a national power backing you?
When you put it that way.
This is a misunderstanding. We're Weavers, like you. There was a brief opportunity to enter the Enclave for the first time in decades, and we took it. Everything we've done since we arrived has been to uncover what happened here after the Surge. And to find you.
If that is true, have you really no inkling of the trouble you've caused?
No.
Your reckless conduct has unleashed an enemy that nearly destroyed us 27 years ago.
The Surgeborn. They first appeared a little over a decade after the Veil went up.
Where did they come from?
No one knows. But they arrived in the Underworks before making their way to the surface.
Where they left a trail of destruction in their wake and wreaked havoc on the Enclave.
Causing casualties to rise.
And so I called for a retreat here, saving countless lives. We sealed the Surgeborn in the Underworks for good. Until now.
We've been here a little while now. Don't you think all of this could have been avoided if you'd properly said hello?
She's right.
This is hardly our fault.
Look, Surgeborn or not, we had no choice but to remove the barrier. Though I suppose we owe you thanks for warning us about the floods.
Who warned you?
You did.
Did we? I'll deal with you later.
While we can agree Arakim breached no contact protocol, it has proven to be the right decision. The floods were growing worse, and now they have stopped. Even if fixing them has introduced a new problem.
One my band would be more than happy to help you solve.
Ha! Work together.
Sorry to interrupt, but you mentioned your last name earlier. Any relation to Shireen Harpinay?
She was my mother. You know who she is?
Of course! I mean, before my time, obviously, but she's still renowned in the Enchanting Guild. Her work is remarkable. There's a statue of her in Denevron, you know?
Oh. I can't believe she didn't mention that.
There is so much I'd love to ask you, but for now, Aurea comes from a long bloodline of outstanding and renowned weavers. Shouldn't that buy her band some grace?
All right. Your presence in the outskirts will be tolerated. Nothing more.
What about the Surgeborn?
What about them?
Shouldn't we work together to deal with them?
We could use the help.
The Surgeborn are a problem for anyone in the outskirts, not us. Cassidon's Hold is a fortress.
The scouts do head into the outskirts to scavenge for supplies.
We'll take our own precautions. Speaking of, we have pressing matters to attend to.
But
Enough! My word is final.
Bryn, the one that led us here is clearly the one that warned us. Try to talk to him before we leave. Maybe he's willing to work with us.
Will do.
Really cool.
Hey, Arakim, was it?
oh, just call me Arik.
Well, Arik, I never got a chance to thank you. You know, for grabbing me before I fell to my death.
I think you had it. Besides, I couldn't let you plummet into a chasm. The Eye is pretty peeved with me, but hey, that's just a bonus.
You and the Eye don't seem to get along very well.
What gave it away? The mutual contempt. The Eye doesn't like anyone who shows initiative or challenges him. Unfortunately, those are my main qualities. And I suspect he perceives them in you, too.
Yeah, I didn't get the impression he's my biggest fan. Will you be in trouble for saving us?
I'd worry if he ever decided to get off his throne and do something about it. But he finds that throne very comfortable.
So, are you glad we're here?
I'm thrilled you're here.
I have to say, I'm surprised.
Oh, yeah. Sorry for all that cloak and dagger stuff earlier. Khan Stanild had me on strict orders not to make contact with your Weaver band. But
it was the right call. From what I just saw, your presence here is having an impact.
How so?
Notice how the Axle took my side against the Eye earlier? That never happens. And the Spindle is as quiet as a mouse most of the time, but not today.
Aha. So these are big changes.
It might not sound like much, but they're excited you're here. Stanild can tell too. That's why he backed down so easily. And that's why I'm glad you're here.
So you're not upset that I breached Asylum, like your colleagues?
I've been pushing to do something about the Surgeborn for years now. Setting them free wasn't great, but sealing them in the underworks indefinitely was never a good solution. Frankly, I think Khan Stanild is just annoyed you undid his one claim to fame. I guarantee he has no plans to do anything about the Surgeborn now that they're free.
You don't think he sees them as a threat?
He's got his head in the sand about a lot of things.
You seem awfully trusting of us, considering the terrible first impression we've made.
I was spying on you the first time we met, so let's call it even.
Sure. Maybe you know everything already then, but have you got any questions for me?
Just one. Why are you here?
Decades of war across the Maida followed after the Surge. Magic and Weavers were blamed for all of it. Without the Enclave as a stabilizing force, it's as if the world outside has splintered into factions, divided by chaos and fear. Not to mention the lands surrounding the Veil are completely shrouded in tangles. I'm here to bring down the Veil, and play a small part in restoring the Maida Basin to what it was before the Surge.
Wow, that's a big picture vision if I ever heard one. If that's truly what you want, then dealing with the Surgeborn is the first step. Ever since the Veil went up, our people have been in crisis. They've spent so long in it, they're afraid to do what it takes to get out. It doesn't help that some have benefited off that same crisis.
Who?
Who always benefits? The very top. Our leaders are too preoccupied with their own concerns to form a unified front against the Surgeborn.
Such as?
The Spindle is obsessed with getting the Arcs functional again. She believes that will help us regain control. And the Axle is too stressed about our supply shortage right now. But, if their concerns were handled, they could pressure the Eye to finally address the Surgeborn.
That sounds like an opportunity. And are you a representative yourself? Do you have sway?
Representative, yes. Sway? No. I represent the Scouts, meaning I'm at the meetings, but I don't have the title to back me up. The Scouts were once points like you, but our role has changed since the Veil went up. We were effectively drafted into scavenging for food and supplies. It made sense following the Surge, but it's been years. Recently, we've even been separated from Cassidon's hold and the remaining civilians. Anyway, it's the guild leaders who will need to pressure Khan Stanild into dealing with the Surgeborn, which is what needs to happen before we can even think about tackling the Veil.
Sounds like I've got some palms to grease.
Yuck. But yes, I'll come by your camp later. We'll be able to speak more freely there.
What is that about?
The Eye isn't one for idle chit-chat. That's worth watching.
Talk to you back at our camp.
You got it.
Sev, you all right?
No. I mean, yes. I'm fine.
You sure?
Bryn, the rest of us are heading out. See you back at camp.
I got to go.
Excuse me, but Arakim mentioned you're the Spindle, a leading representative for the High Arcanists.
Oh, yes, that's correct.
We wanted to formally introduce ourselves. I'm Aurea, as you know. This is Dom, our enchanter, and Bryn, our acting point.
We didn't catch your name earlier. Khan?
Just call me Isla. Is there something I can help you with?
We'd actually like to help you. Apparently you want to restore the Arks.
Shh! Not so loud. Sorry, that sounds wonderful, but the Eye won't be happy about us collaborating.
Come on. You must know better than anyone how integral the Arks are to the Enclave. Why let the Eye's political games stand in the way?
I do know that, I mean, and I don't... I do want to fix the Arks, more than anything. I just need you to be quiet about it.
Okay. We'll try, but forgive us if our excitement bubbles over and we forget.
It's Dom. He's the one that might forget.
We know that the Arks began malfunctioning after the Surge. A select few were even sabotaged. Any idea on what caused the other malfunctions?
Some theories, but nothing solid. Anyone who knew how to create Arks, let alone fix them, died before I was born. I've tinkered with an inactive Ark that's lying near the Grand Gate, but it would make a world of difference if I could study a resonance that was freshly harvested from a great Ark's pattern.
Consider it done.
Bryn's got you covered. She has a knack for harvesting great Archons.
You'll have it in no time.
If you're sure, I certainly would appreciate it. With discretion, of course.
Right.
We've been talking a while. You'd better go.
I am simply telling you, as the foremost leader of the Enclave, that I don't want you getting distracted.
Can you clarify what you mean by that?
You know exactly what I mean. Eyes down, know your place. Focus on your own problems. Organize your little craftspeople. Keep the wheels of civilized society greased. And don't dare to presume you know better than me.
If you have a problem with my performance, you are welcome to gather feedback from the people who elected me. They may have a clearer understanding of what I bring to the table.
We'll continue this conversation later.
Khan Artme. Allow me to formally introduce you to Bryn, the Weaver Band's point.
You're the Axel, right? Arakim says you're a good person to know.
I am. My given name is Haroon, as Arakim said, but you may refer to me as Khan Artme. It's a pleasure to make your acquaintance, despite the circumstances. And I wish they were better circumstances. The new Surgeborn threat requires us to realign our priorities. Some are a little slower on that than others.
If there's anything we can do to move things along, I'm at your disposal.
What about the supply shortage? I've seen her in combat. She's better than any of us.
What's her help look like? I'd prefer if she could avoid unleashing another apocalypse on us.
If it's supplies you're after, that's not a problem at all. Point me at 'em. I got strong arms. Great for lifting heavy things.
Incredible grip strength, too.
That's something you value. You may need to do a little more than heavy lifting. There's a silver lining to this Surgeborn situation that we're suddenly in a position to take advantage of.
Count me in.
Right. With the Surgeborn unleashed, we're anticipating casualties and damage to our facilities. However,
there's a restricted area in the underworks that we lost access to decades ago when the Eye sealed it. The Institute. An arcane laboratory where the Enclave conducted its enchantment research, among other projects. Inside the Institute lies a significant supply cache. Its contents will be enough to keep us going, for the time being. If the notes the previous Axel left me are accurate, though, there's an additional complication.
Of course.
The Surgeborn secure territory by building structures, akin to insect hives. The Institute is likely overrun with them, and has been for 20-odd years.
So, the Surgeborn are a long-standing threat to the Enclave.
I wish I were old enough to remember what it was like to live without the fear of the Surgeborn. As a child, I sat awake every night worrying about them. They were terrifying. Knowing what I know now, I should have been even more scared.
I'm sorry you went through that. It must have been horrible.
Thank you.
All the more reason to actually do something about the problem, instead of spending our lives cowering behind the walls of our glorious fortress.
You'll hear no disagreement from me, now that the game board has been upended.
Sounds like I need to clear any Surgeborn hives from the Institute, then.
That'll thin them out enough that my scouts will be able to access the supply cache without much trouble.
Now that Asylum is lifted, we should be able to access the loom gates in the Institute again. I'm going to trust you with this key swatch. It's been gathering dust for over 25 years.
Only the Eye would let such a crucial resource sit there for that long.
Yes. If we're clear on everything, I'll get back to work. My list of obligations grows by the minute. Someone has to keep this goddamn fortress running.